back to PRSSA Podcast. I'm Chris Ottaviano, a member of the North Carolina State University chapter of PRSSA. I serve on my chapter's executive board as our liaison to the college, and I currently work as a PR intern at Largemouth Communications. Today we're sitting down with Philip Tate, APR, fellow PRSA, and champion for PRSSA, and president of Philip Tate Strategic Communications in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a brand builder and strategic communicator with more than 35 years of experience in public relations, marketing, and advertising. His journey in communications started at a very young age in the Ole Miss press box and transformed into a multi-award winning career. He actively works to lead the industry through PRSA and gives back by mentoring students in PRSSA. So thanks so much for joining today.
My pleasure.
Tell me about what drew you to the PR industry.
Well, I started working, you mentioned earlier, I started working in the Ole Miss press box when I was like 13 years old. We lived in Oxford. My dad was on the staff at Ole Miss. And so every day after practice was done or I was done with schoolwork, I would jump on my bike and ride over to the athletic department at Ole Miss. And I would go work on different projects that they would assign to me. I'm sure they gave me stuff in hopes that I would just go away, but I've helped them with building their baseball records and different things. I'm sure they gave me assignments hoping I would just go away, but I just continued doing that. So that's how I got started, and I would work in the press box and kind of learned the business that way, really as a volunteer through my high school year. So that's really where I got started.
Gotcha. And so for the first 15 years of your career, you were involved with sports. So what drew you to stick around to that industry?
Lifelong sports fan, always loved sports, and still love sports today. Even still have some clients in the sports business. But I like the collaboration, good communication, learn to think on your feet. Meeting with the coaches, meeting with athletes, meeting with administrators, telling their stories. That was all fascinating to me, even from a young age. And so, it was a great place to learn how do you run events. I mean, game operations. All those things are great ways to learn all that. Like I said, writing stories, working with the media, learned all that stuff before I really ever went off to college.
Wow, absolutely. Now, shifting more towards your general experience in the industry, how have you seen the PR industry change over your career?
Probably the biggest change is just the explosion of channels. There's so many different ways you can communicate with people now. When I first started with it, like I said, from that sports perspective, you had sports writers. You had people that would cover the teams, and it was primarily, the coin of the realm was to work at a newspaper. Or maybe a radio play-by-play guy, or maybe when a TV network would come in occasionally to do a game. Social media wasn't around. Everybody didn't have a personal computer back then. I mean, so it was a very, very different time. So now we've had this huge explosion of different channels, and so as communicators, it's a challenge. How do we communicate to all these different audiences in all the different ways that are at our disposal? That's probably been the biggest change.
Absolutely, no doubt. There's so many different channels now. It seems like every week there's a new social media coming out.
Yeah.
So what pivotal moments would you say have helped you learn and develop your core values as a PR professional?
It was a big shift. During probably the first 10, 15 years of my career, I worked in sports marketing, PR, kind of at an agency level. And that was wonderful. And worked in Lexington, Kentucky, Dallas, Texas, and then eventually Charlotte, North Carolina, where I still live. But I'd say the big move for me was moving from working almost exclusively in sports and college sports to a more traditional agency setting. And one of the reasons for that was family reasons. If you look at when sporting events are, the games are on weeknights and weekends. And you still work agency hours, you're still working 50, 60 hours a week like an agency person would, but then you add on to that all the time that is required with being at games. So I wanted to be a parent, wanted to be present for my two daughters, so that move was really kind of formed by that. So then it was a change to try to figure out how do I, translate those skills that I learned pretty much in the sports space to other vertical markets, healthcare and finance and building products and things like that. So that was probably, the biggest shift. And then And then getting involved with PRSA, that became a place for me to continue learning, to develop leadership skills, work outside my workplace, Cocoon, in a place with other people who did similar work to what I did, allowed me to network, over that course of being involved outside my workplace with PRSA, I earned my accreditation in public relations. I served in leadership with the PRSA Charlotte chapter, ran for the national board, served there for 4 years, applied and was accepted to the College of Fellows, been active in leadership there, chaired that affinity group. So there's a lot of things through PRSA that really shaped kind of my career. And then, later in my career here, since leaving the agency and forming my own consultancy, I can be even more intentional about providing time and giving back by mentoring and doing some other things like what we're doing here today. I think it's important for everybody to think in terms of you're going to have multiple jobs over several career paths over the length of your career. And so I think you're going to see PR pros are going to be changing jobs more frequently. And that's not always a bad thing. It can create new opportunities, chance for growth, chance to work on better projects, make more money, what have you. But I think the prospect of having those, being more mobile with your job changes, makes it even more important to be intentional about constantly building your network of people. Contacts, mentors, people you can learn from, people you can teach, and building a vibrant network that can serve you well as you make those different career transitions. I know that when I moved from the agency world into my own consultancy, if I had not had a strong network through PRSA, I would not have had the business that I've been able to cultivate, because most of those clients, prospects, and leads came through or via people that I know through PRSA.
Oftentimes students have maybe a little bit of fear or anxiety about reaching out to professionals for mentorship and stuff like that. How would you recommend that students my age would reach out to professionals like yourself?
I'd say first is don't be afraid to reach out. Think in terms of the person that you're asking. They had to do the same thing at their point, at the same point in their career, right? So don't be afraid to ask. The worst they can say is no. And in most cases, I would say they won't. They will give you that opportunity. I had a mentor early in my career say, just about anybody will talk to you for 15 minutes, one time. So you want to make the most of those opportunities. So I'd say dream big. Identify someone you really want to learn from or learn more about, and make the most of that opportunity. But don't be afraid to ask. Like I say, the worst that can happen is they say no, and you go to the next person on your list. But I would venture to say someone did it for them. Most people feel a certain obligation to pay it forward and do likewise for someone else.
Gotcha. Absolutely. You mentioned a little bit about the challenges of switching from your private practice consultancy or from the sports industry to your private practice. Could you tell me a little bit about the skills that you developed in the sports industry that were easily transferable to tackle some of the challenges that brought up?
I think probably things like resiliency, flexibility, being able to think on your feet. Sports really helps train you for that, because you can't anticipate everything that's going to happen, whether it's in a post-game interview, a coach in the heat of the moment, or a player in the heat of the moment. How do you mitigate something like that? I think sports generally, and the importance of teamwork. Working with teams and working with other people, and different ways to motivate, different ways to deal with different people. Some people need a kick in the seat of the pants. Some people need a pat on the back. And you've got to learn, much like a coach would with players, what's going to be most effective for each individual. And then like I said, sports is full of coaching, mentoring, older players with younger players. Just all that are skill sets that translate into our business as well.
Absolutely, no doubt. Shifting more over to the PRSA side of things, you've been involved with PRSA for a while now. How would you say PRSA has supported you in your career, and why do you continue to stay around and be involved?
Well, the shortest way to say that is PRSA is my tribe. It's people that do similar work, that I've gotten to know, that I've worked with, invested with, and it's a great place to. It's allowed me to exercise muscles I couldn't use in my daily work at the agency. It allowed me to meet new people who do similar work to what I do, but it allowed me to build a network beyond the agency that's proven value to me since I've started my own business. And it also offers so many opportunities to work with students, young professionals, mid-career, even senior professionals at all points along the career continuum. Somebody helped me at every step when I needed help, so I'm just trying to do what I can to maybe help pay it forward to some others.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for
Sure.
for doing that. Your recognition from PRSA, including APR and your induction to the College of Fellows, are incredible accomplishments. What motivates you to work towards those goals, and has any member of PRSA served as a role model or mentor to you?
Probably more people than I could name here, but three in particular. Joe Epley was a legend in Charlotte as kind of the godfather of PR there. He was a past president of PRSA at the national level. He encouraged me to run for the PRSA National Board. And I never worked for Joe, but knew him through PRSA, and we developed a great relationship. Mike Herman, who used to teach here at NC State, was another good mentor of mine in much the same way as Joe. And then Gary McCormick in Knoxville is another good friend. We served together on the national board, and he encouraged me to get into the executive team leadership when I was on the national board. And then Nora Carr was a colleague of mine at the agency. She was a real leader in national school public relations, had a real deep background in education. I learned so much from her. So those are four people, but I think anybody who's been in the business as long as I have, we stand on the shoulders of giants who came before us and taught us those different things. And then they always encouraged us to pay it forward and do the same thing for others.
Absolutely. As you know, it's so important to build that community around you and have that support system.
Absolutely.
So as a champion for PRSSA, you give back to students in our society. What made you choose to be a champion for PRSSA?
I was asked by Gary McCormick and Betsy Plank, and Betsy Plank kind of started the champions for PRSSA. She's another past president of PRSA, and I knew Betsy when she was very late in life, and so she saw the value that practitioners could offer to students, and so she really set a great example that many of us are still trying to follow. And it's the best way I've seen to really give back to the profession and hopefully pay it forward for others who are hoping to spend their career here.
Gotcha. What's been your favorite part about being a champion for PRSSA?
Probably meeting the students, getting involved with students, establishing relationships with folks from literally all over the country, whether it's at PRSA Icon or we'll have the leadership assembly in Charlotte next week. And during my time on the national board, I served 2 years as the national board liaison to PRSSA, and I still stay in touch with students that I met, probably now 12, 15 years ago, who've all advanced in their careers and done great things. So, it's the relationships, and like anything we do in PR, it's all about relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to transition into our speed round here.
Okay.
All right, so I have some questions. If you were a baseball player, what would your walk-up song be?
There's probably two that come to mind. You may not know either one of them, but one was Eye of the Tiger. Was in Rocky III, Survivor, great one-hit wonder, right? And then the other one that comes up, and it's as much about the lyrics, is Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. That's another one that I think resonates with me.
Very nice. I could see that happening. What is the most obscure sporting event you've gotten to be involved with?
I was in Dallas, Texas, and was the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, and which was a great job. And so we had they play 6-man football in Texas in schools that don't have enough boys to field an 11-man team.
Okay.
So I said, I've never seen a 6-man football game. So we went and I took a photographer and took one of my writers with me to Milford, Texas, which is down south of Dallas. And we went on homecoming, and it was amazing to watch. They play on a shorter field. It's like a 70-yard field. It's like watching basketball played with football and helmets and pads. It's all the same, except they play 3 downs, and rules are a little different. And the funniest thing of all was, because the school's so small, I mean, like, the school has like 7 or 8 boys in high school, and there's that many girls. Well, we went on homecoming. And so what do they do at homecoming, right? Halftime, the homecoming court comes on the field, right? Well, you've only got 7 or 8 boys, you got 7 or 8 girls. And so halftime comes, the players all run to the end zone, they take off their pads, they take off their helmets, and they come back to the center of the field, and they escort the homecoming queen and her court, and they finish all the things. Everybody claps and takes their pictures. Boys run back to the end zone, put the pads back on, put the helmets back on, and they play the second half. It was just a surreal thing to cover and watch. It was just so much fun.
Absolutely. Sounds like a nice community experience.
That was unbelievable.
And so, as a PR professional, I'm sure you get asked, what do you do? And it's a little bit hard to explain. What would you say that your friends and family, what would they title your autobiography?
Not sure. Struggle with that a little bit. Probably something like, making your mark, something like that kind of speaks to everybody has an opportunity to kind of make their mark, whether it's with their career, whether it's with their hobbies, influencing people at whatever step. I think you're always communicating when you're interacting with people. So I'd say something like making your mark, maybe.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for coming in today. Where can listeners find out more information about Champions for PRSSA?
That's easy. I would go to the PRSA website, PRSA.org is one example. The other place is just to Google Champions for PRSSA. It should come right up, and you can learn more information about it there. But that's a group that I would encourage all professionals to get more involved with, because it's very, very rewarding.
Awesome. And where can listeners find out more about you?
I would say the best thing is to connect with me on LinkedIn. So it's Philip Tate, APR, fellow PRSA. The other thing is that I have a dot card. So if you go to dot.cards/Philip Tater, you'll go right to my profile.
Awesome. Any parting words that you'd like to share?
Yeah, there's something that someone said to me that has always stuck with me, and that is that great communicators don't just tell stories. They really create impact. That's kind of pulling it through to the business side of things. So great communicators don't just tell stories; they create impact, and obviously we build relationships, and I think we try to embrace every opportunity we have as an opportunity to grow and continue to grow in lifelong learning.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about your career and involvement with PRSSA. To learn more about Champions for PRSSA, please visit champions.prssa.org.